Hi everyone, this is it. It's Miss Mason, reading chapters 57 through 61 of the awesome Holly Goldberg Sloan book, Counting by Sevens. These are the final chapters. Chapter 57. I open my eyes. I can hear Mai's soft breathing above me in the bunk bed, but otherwise the apartment is silent. That's unusual. The world of Patty Nguyen is always noisy. Meals are always being cooked, dishes washed, the vacuum or shower running. But not now, because it's really early. Dell took me to dinner last night to Happy Greens, which is a vegetarian restaurant. He was trying to cheer me up. He told me that they were working on some kind of arrangement. When we got back to the gardens, I did my best to look happy. I look at the clock. It is 4:27 a.m. Kwang Ha is asleep on the couch. The shades in the living room are drawn on the two windows facing the street. The full moon is right above the skylight, and the glow is enough to cast little shadows on the carpet. In the past, I saw these shapes as hopeful. Now they appear to be stains. I take my pillow and the fuzzy blanket from my bed, and I go sit in the bathroom. A few minutes later, Cheddar slinks in. He curls up on the edge of the blanket and falls asleep leaning against my back. There is a window in here, and from my position in the corner on the cold tiles, I see the sunrise bathe the world in orange light. Stars glittering in an endless Bakersfield sky begin to dim. I close my eyes. And finally, as I drift back to sleep, the screen of my mind fills with hummingbirds. They understand the importance of motion. I wake up a few hours later and have no idea where I am. It takes a moment, which feels like eternity, but is in reality less than a second, to process that I'm in the bathroom, and that I won't live at the Gardens of Glenwood after today. That's the thing about time. A second can feel like forever, if what follows is heartbreak. I am very, very tired, but I take a shower and wash my hair. I let it dry the way it wants to, which is in a mass of dark curls. I'm not pulling it back or putting it in a braid or getting it under control. It is what it is. I am what I am. I put on my old gardening outfit. I put the acorn that Mai gave me into my pocket. Maybe it'll be lucky. I've gotten this far. That says something. I'm not going to wear my red hat because I'll be indoors, but I will carry it with me because red is a lucky color and very important in the natural world. It is business as usual at breakfast. I take a banana, which is covered in brown spots. It looks like the skin of a giraffe. I wish that I were old enough to just live in the Amazon and study the plants there, because it is possible that one of them holds the key to the cure for cancer. But the obstacles are insurmountable. I don't even have a passport. We're trying to eat when Dell comes down the hall earlier than usual. He and Patty say they are getting something from the car and they go to the carport. I'm certain that they're talking about my situation. They come back up after a few minutes and only say that we have to leave or Mai will be late for the first bell. I ask Patty what will happen at the hearing. She says that I shouldn't worry. I don't think this is much of an answer. Who wouldn't be worried? And what's worse is I know her now. I spend a big part of every day with her, and so I can see by the expression on her face that she's worried too. Mai wants to go to the hearing in the courthouse this afternoon. I say to her, "You don't have to be there. You're supposed to be in school. I'm ready for this now. I'm stronger." And then I get up and go to the bathroom. Only minutes later, Lenore arrives. Patty says that this isn't goodbye, it's hen gap lai so. That means see you later. I say, yes, I will see you all later. I've got to get out of here because there's too much drama. I hug Mai and I try to be brave because mostly she's falling apart for the two of us. She's always the toughest person in the room, but with me leaving, her armor cracks. I hug Dell, and then I hug Patty. I give Kwang Ha a nod. Then I turn to Cheddar. He's sitting on the back of the couch and he's watching. I was going to go say goodbye to him. That was my plan. But now I can't do that. I turn away. And I hear the bell on his collar ring. The only thing I can think to say is, please water the plants in the courtyard, especially the pittosporum. I'll be over to check on the garden as soon as I can. I hear Mai heading out of the room, moving down the hallway. She can't take it. I turn back just before I leave the apartment. Cheddar is under the speckles of colored light from the broken glass on the rooftop. It makes his face all wobbly. Or maybe that's just what he looks like through tears. I climb into Lenore's car and I look up at the building. I see Cheddar now in the window. I whisper, "Goodbye." I did not say goodbye to my mom or my dad. I never got to do that. They were here and then they were gone. Does saying goodbye matter? Does it really end something? I didn't hug them that morning when I left to go to school. That's why I don't want to go back there. I can handle the other kids and the teachers, and everything about it but the memory. I can't be in that place, because every time I allow myself to think about my last day there, I fall apart. I break loose from this world. I fly into a million pieces. I am worried about Kwang Ha. I know he has lots of homework this week. I hope that he at least attempts to do some of it. And then there's Dell. Will he go back to putting things in closets? Will he return to staring out the window and waiting for his life to begin? Will Patty keep working so hard? I know for a fact that those fumes from the nail polish are bad for her. I realize now that I'm worrying about all of them. It's better than worrying about myself. This is one of the secrets that I have learned in the last few months. When you care about other people, it takes the spotlight off your own drama. Chapter 58. I'm in a large room with 5 other girls at Jameson. We all have hearings today. 4 of the 5 girls are sleeping, or at least pretending to. The 5th girl is talking on a cell phone. I have my computer with me, and after I ask 3 times, the woman at the front desk gives me the wireless password. No one else has a computer. I feel bad using mine, but the other girls don't seem to care. Everyone in this room is in her own bubble of unhappiness, and there's not a lot of sharing. I'm grateful for that. Since I have access to the wireless code, I decided to take a look at the Jameson system. The system is of course protected, but the firewall isn't very secure. I've looked at a lot of code for electronic buffering. It's not a very sophisticated network, because I see the transport layer and recognize it immediately as something I've gotten through. I'm thinking that not many hacker kids end up here. I'm not a hacker kid, but I have potential in this area. I get in right away. I go to Lenore's account. When I look at her email, I suddenly feel sorry for her. She appears to be massively overworked. There's email from juvenile court, from schools, from the police department. Mountains of the stuff. I see references to all kinds of medical documents. There are reports of physical abuse and criminal behavior. I feel sick now, in a new way. I really shouldn't be reading these things. It's all too personal, and it's not about me, and what I'm doing is wrong. I have Dell's work files on my computer. I transferred everything when I put together his laptop, but I never actually looked at any of the stuff. Now I open up one of his files called DDSS, and I read, Dell Duke System of the Strange. 1. Misfit. 2. Oddball. 3. Lone Wolf. 4. Weirdo. 5. Genius. 6. Dictator. 7. Mutant. There are many names in most of the categories. I go through them. Kwang Ha is a lone wolf, and Patty is a dictator. I see that Mai is a junior dictator. And then I see that for mutant there is only one name. Del Duke has listed himself. At first I'm appalled, and then I realize he's only trying to make sense of the world. He's looking for a way to put things in categories. He's seeing people as different species. Of course he's wrong. All of us are all of those things. I'm no genius. I'm as much of a lone wolf or a misfit or a weirdo as anyone. When it came to the garden, I was a dictator. If there's anything I've figured out in the last months, it's that if you find labels to organize living things, but you can't put people in any kind of group or order. It just doesn't work that way. I close my computer, and in only a handful of minutes a woman comes into the room to tell us that lunch is being served. I'm not hungry, but I follow the group to the dining area. They don't have much of a selection for vegetarians, but I pick my way through a salad and some spinach with alarmingly bright orange-colored cheese sauce. At least I think it's cheese sauce. It seems better not to ask. Everyone else sitting at my table is having a hot dog. When they're finished, they bring us each a bowl of vanilla ice cream with sprinkles on top. The girl next to me starts to cry when she sees the sprinkles. I'm wondering if she's worried about the long-term side effects of consuming artificial food coloring. It's a valid concern. But I decide she's not crying about that, because she has a horrible burn on her arm and she picks at it as she weeps. The burn is the size of a cherry. I get a bad feeling in my stomach thinking that someone did this to her. Maybe that's even why she's here. I shut my eyes and do my best to imagine I'm back in the new garden. And before I know it, my ice cream bowl looks like soup, and the colored sprinkles have all sunk. Lenore comes to get me. She says that she likes the way my hair looks today. It hasn't changed since she picked me up, so she might just be trying to think of something positive to say to me. But I smile anyway. I realize that it's a true smile. I will go forward into the world and do my best to be the daughter that my parents would have wanted me to be. I'm not brave. It's just that all other choices have been thrown out the window. Lenore takes me to see the grief counselor, whose name is Mrs. Bode Ernst. Sitting in her office, I realize that I'm not afraid of anything. Anymore. Exactly 7 letters. Just a coincidence. Not long ago, I had a lot of fear. Now it feels like there's not a lot left to be afraid about. Lenore says, "Today is all just procedure. You will see the judge in private. He might ask some questions. There is paperwork to be signed." Mrs. Bode Ernst smiles, and I understand that she's thinking this is good news. Or maybe she's just smiling to be encouraging. I don't share her optimism. The grief counselor says, "The beginning of anything is hard. I know you've been through a lot. We're going to get you in school, and you'll make all kinds of new friends. Before you know it, you're going to be right back in the swing of things." I think about telling her that my school experience was never that great, and besides Margaret Z. Buckle, I didn't have close friends until I met Mai and Quang Ha and lived at the Gardens of Glenwood. But I don't want to upset her. How could she know that I never had that kind of swing? Lenore and I return to her car. She explains that the judge will take legal responsibility for me. I'm hoping that it'll be a woman and a person of color who sees me and understands that I'm different, even strange, as Del Duke figured out, but that I still have value. The court will now call the shots. I can tell that Lenore feels bad right now, but none of this is her fault. I want her to understand. I want to tell her that I'm sorry. Instead, I reach over and touch her arm. Just my fingertips. After that, I don't have to say anything. I can tell she understands. I go into the girls' bathroom in the courthouse. I need a few minutes by myself. The mirror in here is not made of glass. It's a polyester film coating made with aluminum stretched perfectly flat against a rectangular board. So you can't break this mirror. I'm guessing they think that people who end up here don't need any more bad luck. I open my mouth and stare. Because my skin is dark, my teeth look very white. They are straight and I think a good size, but they are permanent teeth. There's no hiding it. I shut my eyes. I can see my always smiling mother and my strong father. I hear their words voiced in so many ways, since as early as I can remember, trying to protect me. Were they too worried about me to look out for themselves? Or is life so filled with random action that the very notion of caution is futile? If the last few months have proven anything, it's that I don't need more theory, but rather more experience with reality, even though the dose I've received is enough to last a lifetime. When I see the judge, I will try to convey a positive attitude, while at the same time monitoring my blood pressure and other vital signs. There have been cases of stress-induced cardiomyopathy, which is also known as broken heart syndrome. Chapter 59. Del was getting ready. He picked out a red tie and put on his suit. It had been the first time he told his boss a version of the truth about why he wouldn't be at work. He was going to juvenile court to be there for one of the kids that he counseled. Instead of feeling like a lazy slacker, he had thought he could hear admiration in the voice of his supervisor. Or maybe the guy was just yawning. Now, as he pulled up the pants on his suit, he was surprised that he was able to button the waistband. The last time he found himself in this situation, he'd used a safety pin to keep the pants closed. This was solid evidence that he'd been losing weight. Not enough that he could get out of his car when it was pinned up against a van, but still, it felt good to see his stomach receding. Down the hall in number 28, Patty debated what to wear, and settled on a white silk shirt with 2 embroidered doves. It came from Vietnam. She already had on a black skirt from a discount store, and red slippers. The doves were a symbol of love. The black skirt was a show of respect. And the red slippers, of course, were lucky. Probably no one in authority would pick up on the symbolism, but if they did, Patty wanted to give the right impression of her intent. Across town, Mai sat in her high school history class and stared out the window. It wasn't fair. She, of all people, should be there. She had started this. The clock on the far wall behind the teacher's head hadn't moved in what seemed like forever. The woman was going on and on about ancient Rome, and when it became clear to Mai that the only thing that mattered was in a courthouse in downtown Bakersfield. By the time the bell rang, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Mai explained to the woman in the office that there was a family emergency. And then she used a trick. She started speaking in Vietnamese, rapid fire. That unnerved people. The next thing she knew, she had a permission slip to get Quang Ha out of biology, where he was actually paying attention to a short film on mitosis. And only minutes later, the 2 Nguyens were walking out the front doors on their way downtown. Mai looked back at the school and saw a decal in the classroom window. It was of a sunflower. Bathed in the heart light, it glowed as if it were made of gold. Mai took that to be a good sign. Chapter 60. Family Court has its own area on the 2nd floor of City Hall. I could ask a million questions about what will happen next, but I've decided that I'm going to go where the wind takes me. And it's gusting outside, so if that's any indicator, maybe I'll be blown far. Lenore knows her way around this place, and a lot of people say hello. She keeps her hand on my shoulder, which is a nice touch. She says that she will be there for me. I'm taken into a waiting area. They don't have kids sit in the main room, and that makes sense. I see a little boy come in, and he's crying. He's small. He looks like he's only 6 or 7 years old. A man picks him up and whispers in the boy's ear, but he keeps crying. I'm glad I can't hear what's being said. I think that waiting is the hardest part. I'm okay with it, though, because it's not like I'm rushing to get somewhere. Lenore leaves the room, and I realize now that I could run away. I could just walk out the door and keep going. But I don't do that. And not just because I'm tired. I've given in. But that's different from giving up. After a long time, a woman appears and says it's my turn to see the judge. I don't know what happened to Lenore, and I feel like I should wait for her. But the woman says that Lenore's dealing with something unexpected. I just shrug. I think that everything Lenore deals with is unexpected. I follow the new woman in charge down the hall, and we turn and enter what is the judge's chamber. I guess saying judge's office doesn't sound as powerful. And that's when I see them. They are standing. Dell has on a suit, which is pretty tight. Next to him on one side is Quang Ha. On the other is Patty. At Patty's elbow is Hyro. He also wears a suit, so I almost don't recognize him. And in front, holding a big bunch of tulips, is Mai. They are all smiling. I don't say anything, and I don't move. I'm completely still. I know how to do that. At the desk, a woman gets to her feet. She's wearing what I guess is a judge's robe, but it looks like a choir outfit. I don't even blink as she says, "Willow, I'm Judge Biederman, and I think that you know these people." I'm not sure what to do. I realize that tears are flooding my eyes, but I'm not crying. I'm just dripping. I don't know what any of this means. The judge continues. There has been a formal request made today to the court for your guardianship. In a motion filed by Mr. Jairo Hernandez and Mrs. Dung Nguyen, Patty interrupts the judge. It's Patty. Judge Biederman continues, but I don't think people break in on her very often because her nose wrinkles up. Mr. Hernandez and Ms. Patty Nguyen are seeking this custody agreement as partners. I don't hear anything after that. I don't need to. I know that Lenore comes into the room, and at some point she has her arm around me. I sink into a chair and I bury my face into my red hat, and I'm not sure if I'm laughing or crying. I hear Mai's voice. "It's going to be all right now. Don't cry, Willow." I answer in Vietnamese, "Doc Han La Bin Thong," which means, It's more than all right. Patty and Hiro aren't getting married or anything like that, but they are in some kind of relationship, which looks to me like more than just friends. We find out that Patty hasn't been working late all the time. She and Hiro have been going to dinner, and even to a few movies, and once to a poetry reading at Bakersfield College. We all have the same look on our faces when we hear this piece of news. Kwang Ha, of course, is the one who says, "Poetry reading? You've got to be kidding me." Dell wanted to go for guardianship too, but he's pretty much broke, even though I recently put his accounts on autopay to help straighten out some of his finances, so he doesn't qualify. Hiro has some cash in his account from his prize, but the real discovery is that Patty is some kind of hoarder. While Dell spent years piling up plastic plates, Patty was stacking money. She hid this from everyone. But now that the court needs to review all of her financial documents, she has to admit that she's got, as Kwang Ha says, crazy mad money. I'm not supposed to see any of this, but Patty and Hiro didn't follow any of the correct procedures, and that means that Lenore has to bring out the paperwork while I'm in the room. Judge Biederman says she's going to overlook all of the red tape for now. I can see that Patty likes the idea of red tape, obviously because of her attachment to the color. I can't remember ever in my life seeing red tape. There is black, and of course brown tape for packing, and silver. I make a note to investigate this reference later. Lenore signs off on her part in the approval process, but she says that Patty and Hiro need to come back and do things the right way. But the important thing is that for today, they are granted jointly the guardianship, which is on track to not be temporary, of a person named Willow Chance. That's now legal. Once this is said by the judge in an official way, Dell makes a show by dropping to the floor like he's doing a split. It's supposed to be some kind of victory move, but he rips his pants in the crotch, which isn't just super embarrassing for him, but makes Kwang Ha start to laugh. It's his high-pitched giggle. And once that happens, the contagious things get going. And I'm part of that now. I can see from the look on the judge's scrunched face that it's time for us to be moving on. We are outside when Mai gives me a big hug. Then Kwang Ha slings his arm around my shoulder, and I know he's going to say something important. He lowers his voice and I hear, "I have a paper due in English class on Wednesday. Moby Dick. Hope you have time to read it." We then walk across the plaza and get into Hiro's taxi. We sit 3 in the front and 3 in the back. It doesn't look safe, but there are seatbelts for all of the passengers. We decide to drive to Luigi's restaurant, since this is a favorite of Dell's, and he's got the most enthusiasm about eating. I get sago beans, which are pinto beans marinated in oil and vinegar and crushed red pepper. Everyone else orders spicy pickle tongue sandwiches. I don't eat meat, and organ meat is a whole other category of stuff I don't want to chew. But I do nothing but smile when they all offer me a bite. Chapter 61. We are in the taxi, driving back, when Patty reveals something big. She wants to buy the building. The Gardens of Glenwood. We all think that she's kidding, but apparently she's already spoken to someone at the bank and she's put in a formal offer. I don't know what to make of it, but Dell looks thrilled. I'm thinking that he's thinking that he won't get evicted if she owns the place, but I doubt he'll still be the building rep. Kwang Ha is the most energized by this news. I guess he still worries about going back to the garage behind the salon. He says that if his mom owns the place, we should make a skateboard ramp in the front entrance where the stairs are. I didn't know he was a skateboarder. Interesting. Patty says that nothing is for certain. This is the truest statement I've ever heard. In the late afternoon, after everything has settled down, I put away my garden clothes and I run the mile loop. I then take a seat next to the timber bamboo in the courtyard. I know that I will think about this day many times, and I realize that it is the seventh of the month, and I'm not surprised. 7 is a natural number, and it is a prime number. There are 7 basic types of catastrophes, and 7 days of the week. Isaac Newton identified the 7 colors of the rainbow as violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. Dell put people in 7 categories: misfit, oddball, lone wolf, weirdo, genius, dictator, mutant. I have my own system of order. I think that at every stage of living there are 7 people who matter in your world. They are people who are inside you. They are people you rely on. They are people who daily change your life. For me, I count 1. My mom, always. 2. And my dad, forever. 3. Mai. 4. Del. 5. Quang Ha. 6. Patty. 7. Hyro. I decide that when my head begins to pound from now on, I will shut my eyes and count 2 7 instead of by 7s. I see each one of these people like the colors of the rainbow. They are vivid and distinct, and they hold a permanent place in my heart. If the builder had had more money, this area would probably have been a swimming pool, but it's not. It's a garden. I shift my position and suddenly I feel something in my pocket. It's my lucky acorn. I get up and pick a spot off to the side where I know there might be space for something of size to grow. I punch my finger into the dirt to make a small hole, and I drop in the brown nut. I return to the stairs, and as I sit here in a slice of winter sunlight, 2 small birds find their way to the honeysuckle planted next to the bamboo. They speak to me, not in words, but in action. They tell me that life goes on. Thank you all for listening, and thank you so much to Holly Goldberg Sloan for writing the awesome book, Counting by Sevens.